everybody in the company needs to be on the same page at the company, right?
Like with your core values.
They need to understand what you're about and everything.
Yeah, your core values, your mission, your objectives that you're trying to achieve.
Yep. And as manufacturing leaders, we need to take responsibility for our poor communication, admit it or apologize to our team about it, and make corrections. And so that's what I think that I want to have a discussion about today. So the first point in order to improve your communication or to cut back on the miscommunication is to be self-aware. So not everybody, as leaders, we're short on time. We're always answering questions. We have a lot of people that we're communicating with, and sometimes we're not self-aware to understand that not everybody knows what we know. Right? They may know
no
less.
one can read your mind.
Nobody can read your mind, and they may know less than you, and they may know more than you about something. So we need to come from the awareness of the self-awareness to understand that, hey, there's something that I can learn from my team, and there's probably a lot of things that my team doesn't understand, and I need to be better at communicating with them.
It's like that from the traction book that you got us all started on, where he's like, "Do you see what I'm saying?" He's like, yeah, well, do they actually see what you're saying? And for creative visionary type people, it can be really hard because you see it. You see like what you're trying to communicate and you're like, why don't you get it? And so you got to put like extra attention into the communication. I've learned that, and I still struggle with that a lot.
Yeah, I think we all these are all points that I still struggle with on a regular basis too.
So two,
and this kind of goes back to I'm always going to make these marriage and parenting analogies, but this goes back to something I always have to remember with my wife, especially when we're fighting, is when we communicate, we have to assume the best intentions in others. So I just had a thing the other day, and I'll just be honest about it. It was so dumb. It was really dumb. And, the bottom line is that this miscommunication was because, these two individuals on my team were not assuming the best intentions in each other. So somebody on my team that helps me out, doing payroll, was, in the system and clocked somebody out at the wrong time. And then she looked at it and was offended because, she was clocked out beforehand and thought that,
she got docked 15 minutes.
Yeah. And it was you guys are assuming the worst in each other. You need to assume the best in each other in this situation, which is that one person made a mistake and we're always going to rectify your pay to your advantage,
Yeah, just because your machinist scraps apart doesn't mean he's trying to sabotage your company.
Exactly.
Bingo. Exactly, Nick. So you always want to assume those best intentions, because I think for the most part, there's some bad people out there. And I think everybody, is, we all got our sin problems, but I don't think people are trying to do bad things to each other.
Well, you have a pretty bad culture if you've got employees that are trying to intentionally do that, right?
Yes, and I think that most of the people that listen to Making Chips don't have that bad of a culture. So always assume the best in others. The third point would be have a mutual best outcome in mind, and even start a conversation out by saying this. So this is something that I learned. I've mentioned this before.
Crucial conversations
is start out a conversation by having the mutual best outcome in mind. And what I mean by that is, if you have some conflict in your company and you need to confront somebody on something, always keep in mind that there is something that you mutually want to get out of this conversation. It might be just to have a better relationship. It could be that you need to take care of the customer, and you need to kind of set your egos aside and say, this is not about me and this is not about you. This is about the company and what we're trying to achieve as a group. Just be direct and forthcoming, but also have empathy for the other person. I don't think that it's, a lot of times, and I've even, done this before, you put off having that hard conversation with somebody for just too long because you just don't want to tell them the bad news. And I think a lot of times you're not being a good leader by putting that conversation off for too long. But you need to do it with empathy. You know what I mean? You need to understand where that person is at, if they've got any struggles going on in their lives.
How do you know that? How do you know?
Well, you know your team.
Yeah,
you gotta know your team.
You don't know what's going on in their personal life. You don't know that their marriage is in dire straits, or their kid, just got a DUI last week. And some employees don't want to convey all that.
I guess what I would...
Some people are a little bit private about their personal lives, and their personal lives affect their business lives, right?
I agree with you, and I guess that's a situation where you want to treat other people as you want to be treated. And so regardless of whether, their kid had a DUI or they're, in a fight with their wife, just treat them like you would want to be treated in that conversation, which would be like, you're doing these things wrong. I'm letting you know about it. This is the third time that we've talked about it. You need to fix it.
Sure.
And
you don't necessarily have to know what's going on in their life to know what it feels like to have a lot going on in your life that's affecting your business.
But you got to be direct with things. You can't kind of, dance around it. You need to be direct. Number 5 would be, and this is just kind of the way that I think about it, would be to, trickle your thoughts, your ideas, and your questions to the team. So, there's a lot of situations where people are kind of uncertain about what's going on. So as an example, the COVID situation starts and people are thinking to themselves, are we going to be let go? Are we going to be docked pay? Are we going to be put on, 30 hours a week? And people start making stuff up and spreading rumors. And you just got to squash those things. You know what I mean? And you got to come to them and say, this is what I'm thinking. I think we can make it through this. And these are the things that I'm going to be doing. Does anybody else have any feedback, have any better ideas? But don't let there be a void by not talking. At the very least, trickle some of your thoughts out there so that the team can hear what's going on.
I guess if there's a void, people will fill it with shenanigans.
Bingo. Yes, that's probably the best way to put it. Shenanigans will be talked about. Yes. Sure. Yes. Number 6, understand that people can handle bad news better than they can handle a lack of information. That's a good one. This kind of goes to number 5, but
right, very similar. Yeah.
We as a species, we do survive and we do get through bad things. We get through death. We get through sickness. I think that 2020 has been a testament to that. Mm-hmm. We get through these bad things and we can handle bad news. So if you got to go to somebody and say, I need to reduce your pay, or I'm probably, if you don't hit these marks or we don't hit these marks as a company, I'm going to have to reduce your pay. Have those conversations with people ahead of time and understand that they can handle bad news as opposed to just, not telling them what's going on.
You brought up how we can handle sickness and we can get through things like that. Have you ever had an ailment, something wrong with you, and you don't know what it is? And you're like, I just want to know, even if it's horrible news, I just want to know what it is.
Yeah, I remember, I've talked about this before on Making Chips when we were really struggling in our business, and you and I were out in California, Jim, and I, found out this terrible news, and shortly after that, I started having chest pains, and I had to get on adrenal gland support, and all this other kind of crazy stuff. So yeah, yes, I do.
Yeah, and it was even though if someone would have said, "Hey, you have a heart defect or something," you're almost relieved that you know what it is.
Exactly. Bingo. Be specific with what you want. So don't assume this. A lot of these kind of points that I'm talking about go back to some similar principles, but be really specific with what you want. So I was getting kind of annoyed with somebody on my team because they weren't moving forward with this automation that I wanted them to do. And one of the things that I realized as I kind of started digging into myself, I wasn't specific enough about what I wanted to do. I was just trying to tell them, I need you to start automating more. In our processes.
Yeah, you were too vague.
I was too vague.
Well, what does that mean?
Yeah, well, what does that mean? And to somebody that's not used to that, I was talking about automating the way that we, take care of different, for example, he was doing our payroll, and then he was putting those numbers into a spreadsheet, and then he was taking the spreadsheet and putting that into our ERP system. And I'm like, no, we shouldn't be doing that. And I was just make it better, make it automated. And what I should have told him was because he didn't do it automatically, and I just was getting upset about it, contact the payroll company and have them create a custom report that they automatically email to you, so you don't even have to go in there and do it. Right, automate these things. Or even better, have them create a flat file that we can import into our ERP system, and boom, you're done. And I wasn't specific enough in what I was communicating to him.
So you didn't get in the weeds, and that was the problem.
And sometimes you got to dig into the weeds.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to dig into the weeds.
And I think the higher level employee, the more strategic employee, you have to give less detail. You're at least in theory should have to get less detail.
Exactly.
Than more of a more tactical employee that might be newer.
Yeah, I mean, anything on the shop floor you can think of related to that, Jim?
just as far as giving them
just being where lack of specificity costs you money.
Oh, all the time. Absolutely. No question at all. You have to tell them exactly what you want. And the funny thing is you have to know your employees because different people react differently to communication. So, you have, that's why it's important to know how effective your communication is with each and every person in your company.
Yep. I mean, one of the things that I hear from,
some people digest communication differently too.
Yep. And
like I'm visual, so I'm much better if I draw something or write something.
We're gonna get there, Jim.
Yeah.
But what I was referring to is like one of the things that I always hear from manufacturing leaders is our setup times are too long, and this doesn't just come from you. It comes from a lot of people. I mean, we're taking too long in setups.
It's a very common. It's a very common in the industry.
And I think that a lot of times you can't just go to your guys on the shop floor and say, hey, I quoted 7 hours. You need to get it done in 7 hours. You need to be really specific about what they need to improve.
Yeah, like maybe take a look at the fixturing.
Maybe take a look at the fixturing. There you go.
I had to throw that in there. But I have an example where you could be. Where too much specificity could be the problem.
Okay, go ahead.
But it still comes down to more or better communication.
Right.
So sometimes you don't know like who drew up the manufacturing prints. You don't always know that person.
I mean the engineer.
Yeah.
No.
I know where he's going. You talk about this all the time, Jim.
So sometimes there's like an extremely tight tolerance on a feature that isn't important.
Right.
And so you quote it, and they're like, "Man, that is." Well, like, I can't believe it's that expensive.
It's going to cost you twice as much.
Well, like, do you understand that, like, in order to do that, we got to do things that we wouldn't have to do?
We have to send it out for stress relief. And we have to pre-machine it, send it out for stress relief and bring it back in, flip it over, take equal stock removal on both sides. Yeah.
And so what do you do instead?
So, you talk to them, you say, hey, tell me about that feature. Why? Like, what is that used for? And more than half the time, they're going to be like, you know what? Yeah, I can open that up for you. And you're like, good, because I'm going to give you a better price.
There you go. Bam. And you do that all the time too, don't you?
I do it. It's called DFM, Design for Manufacturing.
To understand what your team knows and what they don't know. And so what I mean by that is actually seek to understand your team and where they're weak and where they're strong and what they know and what they don't know. And that could be in the general tasks that they have to do on a day-to-day basis so that you could better communicate with them. Or it could be like I do this all the time. If I'm delivering a speech to my team, maybe it's like our quarterly update, I'm asking them throughout the speech, are you tracking with me? Are you understanding?
Yeah, but a lot of times they just say, yeah.
I know, but like you gotta kind of dig into
like
it.
Nodding their head, and you're like, yeah, but you're not listening. I could tell by your face.
Yeah, but that's where it comes down to, Jim. If you sit down with them later and they show the fact that they don't understand, then you can call them and you could be direct with them and say, we talked about this. And I asked you if I'm explaining this well, and I asked you if you understand what I'm saying, and you didn't say anything. So this is not an excusable thing that you are now saying you don't understand.
And if you really want to know, ask them to explain it to you. Like, so
there you go.
What did I just say?
That's a great idea. Yes, you're right.
Because if they can't explain it to you, they don't know what the hell you were talking about.
Bingo. And this especially goes for delegation. Like I talked
delegating
about
responsibility.
Delegating responsibility. I talked about previously on the episode that we're getting our website ramped up because somebody else is going to be helping me to work on the e-commerce data. And I was just dealing with a situation where I taught him everything, and I'm not a very good teacher, to be honest with you. And I thought I taught him everything that he was supposed to know in order to do these, this data work. And he didn't get it the first time, and that's okay. Like, you know what I mean? Right. But like, he needs to make sure, and I need to make sure that we both understand what each other knows.
Yeah, that's really important. Or sometimes I'll be like, hey guys, in the digital marketing world, there's lots of like courses you can take and certifications you can take.
You're good at that. Yeah.
I'll be like, yeah, hey, take this course, And I took the course. I feel like I grasped it. And then like someone else will take the course. Like, oh, cool. They even got the certification.
Yeah. Well,
it doesn't mean they actually know how to do it.
And this goes back to, so like we run our marketing agency on agile principles.
Yeah.
And you've been really good about getting the team trained in agile. And you explained it to me, and I got it like after you explained it to me for like 10 minutes, and that was fine. But not everybody, not even after going through like a multi-hour course.
Yeah, we had some struggles.
Yeah, we had some struggles, and sometimes you got to think about their role on the team and like whether they GWC the job. But like
that's another EOS term. So GWC, go ahead.
Get it, want it, and have the capacity to do it.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's going to be, we're going to talk about that on a future podcast.
Oh, fantastic, Jim. Okay, number 9, over communicate. I think this just very simple concept. Keep communicating.
Yep.
And I'm not good at this. I need to be better about over communicating. Like, you got to keep communicating your values. You got to keep communicating your vision. You got to keep communicating how you communicate with customers. You got to, just over communicate, talk.
That's something my dad always says. We've never been accused of too much communication.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. And you can never, I've heard like this saying that like, once you think that you've communicated enough, you're probably halfway there.
Yeah. It's like drinking water.
Oh, there you go.
No one drinks
a lot
enough
of water
though. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's always
so
clear
that's one
for
of
you?
our 3 uniques is communication.
There you go.
And we try to over communicate all the time.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because
and you've communicated your 3 uniques.
We've-
So let me
we've
see if I've heard them and understood them.
Okay.
Communication, technology, and what was it?
people.
the most
The
important
people.
one.
Yeah.
So
there you
in
go.
order, it's people
I knew
first.
I started with a P. I was going to say
our
people or
people-
passion or something like that.
Our people, definitely, without a doubt, humans are the most important thing. And then communication is second, and then our technology is third. So our people, our communication, our technology.
Yeah, and I would say that probably 99.9% of your customers do not know that, and so you need to over-communicate that. Communicate it to them. Learn how others prefer to receive communication. So as an example, if you're going to write Jim an email, jim@makingchips.com, make it like 3 sentences, because he won't read past the first paragraph.
If it's too long, I won't.
And even better, if you're going to email Jim@makingchips.com, is just send him a graphic. Draw him a cartoon.
You know
Send
what?
him an infographic.
I really like bullets. Bullets impress the
And
hell out of
pictures.
me.
So I guess it would just be learn how the other person wants to receive their
yeah.
communication. So, it's just, and again, this goes in as it relates to marriage too. My wife does not like things repeated to her. It's like one of her pet peeves. So these bullet points kind of go against, some of her principles, but she feels like if she says something to me once, I need to receive it. So I need to be really careful about, listening the first time. And I also need to be really careful about not telling her things that I already told her.
Oh, yeah.
So you got, and there's some people where they want to have a lot of details, and there's some people that just want the high points. So you need to learn the person that you're communicating with.
We talked about that when we did
that.
the Colby test. Like
Exactly.
the red column was, how much specificity do you get into, or just give me just the essentials,
Bingo.
Summarize it for me, or, I need to get into the weeds, and people are all over that.
Yeah, even
spectrum.
the DISC test,
Yeah.
that goes to how people want to, receive communication.
It's kind of funny
as well.
though, because like you're talking about, repeating what you say and over communicating. And, my dad's been a manufacturing leader my whole life. And so he'd be like, hey, I need you to mow the yard. Hey, did you mow? And then he'll call me like 20 minutes later. Hey, did you mow the yard? Like, no, Dad. And then he'll call me again. And he'll call me again when I was growing up, and it's like the more he told me, the less likely I was to actually do it.
Well, and you were doing
I don't know why.
You were doing a bad job of communicating, because you should have just said to him the first time, be like, yes, Dad, I will mow the lawn.
Yeah,
But I've got these other priorities I want to do first. Is that okay?
Yeah. And I'll call you
He'd
when
be like,
I'm
yeah,
done.
that's fine. I'll just call you in 5 minutes.
So those are my 10 points. Hopefully I didn't leave anything out. What do you guys think that you need to improve as it relates to your communication? I know,
I'll tell
my
you
big thing is over communicating. I need to do that better.
So I think that we all need to be more cognizant of how important this is, because it's really affecting the dollar, the bottom line of our business.
You're struck by that, aren't you?
Well, it's all about, we're in business to make money, right? Mm-hmm. We want a better life than the average person,
Or
right?
to care for other people.
Right.
Just depends.
We're willing to work harder to provide better things for ourselves and our family, right? That's typically why a person, starts their own business. They want the freedom to be their own boss.
I agree with the freedom part. Yes.
Okay. So, but at the end of the day, if you're not a profitable company, you're going to go out of business.
Correct.
So when you're talking about, monies, $4,000 to $5,000 per person per year, you got a big company, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 employees. Now we're talking about some serious moolah here. So definitely, and I understand what you're saying here. There were a few points that I took some notes on, but I think communication or over communicating is the simplest one on that list, and it's the one that's the most powerful because it's so easy to do. It's so easy to do. And be specific about your instructions.
That was mine.
Don't talk about something else at the same time.
Oh, I am so guilty of that.
Right. You know what I mean? Don't
rabbit
talk
trail
about
like crazy, and people will be like, "What are you even talking about?"
I didn't mention this as one of the points, but I had to have a crucial conversation with somebody recently, and when people are hearing bad news, a lot of times they like to kind of distract you, and a lot of times in communication, you gotta stay on point too.